Hello everybody, this is Zaxter99. Cooled down a little bit from watching my Cowboy game earlier when the Cowboys went into Washington and throttled them 44, pretty much thrashed them 44 to 17. And the game mainly had me upset because I was very, very concerned about one of the Cowboys starters getting hurt. And, Jason Garrett playing the Cowboys playing all the starters through a game that really didn't have a lot of meaning. I mean, yes, it's important that you go into the playoffs, firing on all cylinders. Yes, it's important that you're confident that you don't get rusty before you go into the playoffs. I understand that. But then at the same point, how bad, how much would Dallas have been mocked had they played all their starters as much as they played them if one of them had got seriously hurt? If Romo had taken like any of those plays where he got hit, if he had been hit and couldn't get up, DeMarco Murray, if he had gotten injured, if he had rolled his ankle or got his leg twisted or whatever, his knee twisted, and wouldn't have been able to play in the playoffs, Dallas would have taken a lot of heat. And if one of their starters had went out, it could severely cost them a chance at doing some damage in the playoffs. So they did go ahead and announce the playoff schedule. We know now that Detroit is going to be coming to Dallas. And that's actually going to be the early game. Or actually, sorry, that's going to be the late game next Sunday at 4:40 Eastern Time. That's 1:40 p.m. On Pacific Time. So Detroit at Dallas. Dallas does get that home game. And then if Dallas wins, Dallas would actually be then going to Green Bay. So, saying if Dallas wins, the last time Dallas played Detroit, we can remember back to 2013. This was the week before when Dez Bryant was talking all that junk about how he was better than Calvin Johnson, how he could get more yards than him, and it was a big competition between Calvin Johnson and Dez Bryant. And that's kind of the way the game hyped up to be. And if you remember, that's a game where the Dallas defense last year, which did rank dead last in the NFL when they had DeMarcus Ware and company, Dallas gave up over 600 yards to the Detroit offense because Calvin Johnson had like 329 yards, I believe it was. He had over 300 yards himself to Calvin Johnson. And Matthew Stafford just had a monster day as well. And if you remember that game, that was the game when Dallas went ahead, and then with I think a minute left or whatever, Stafford drove his offense down the field, and then from 1 or 2 yards out, Stafford took the ball in himself on a quarterback sneak. I think the clock was ticking or something like that. He didn't even call a play. It was pretty much just, Stafford improvising, and he made a brilliant play to beat the Cowboys. And I believe the Cowboys lost that game like 31-30, even though they had like a third as many yards on offense and gave up like 2 or 3 times as many yards as they allowed, as Detroit allowed, rather. But I remember that game very well. And so this is going to be a game that's going to be kind of a rematch. That game was in Detroit. This game is in Dallas. Dallas hasn't done a lot with home field advantage. Dallas has won all 8 away games this season. Every game that they've went to somewhere, they have played whoever it was, Seattle, Washington, their division rivals, whoever it was, Dallas went in there and beat them on their own turf every single time this year. Dallas's home record was the record that was at 4-4. So at home they only won half their games, but away they won all of them. They ended up with a 12-4 record. They're hosting the 11-5 Detroit Lions, who come into the game losing to Green Bay 30-20 today. But let's not be overconfident about the Cowboys' chances at home against Detroit. Detroit is still a very good team. I mean, their offense is explosive, and they could still make our defense look bad. They got Matthew Stafford. He's a very good quarterback. They've got, of course, Calvin Johnson. Nobody can forget Calvin Johnson. They've also got Golden Tate this year. They've got Ebron, who is a very good young tight end. And, they've got a good running game as well with Joyce Bell and Reggie Bush. So I think both of those guys are still playing. And they've got a monstrous defense as well, led by Ndamukong Suh, and good cornerbacks. So it's going to be a good game. Dallas is going to have to be firing on all cylinders and play virtually mistake-free football to hope to come out of this game uh, and continue on in the playoffs and go to Green Bay the next week. The good thing is Dallas really only has to win Detroit, Green Bay, and then the championship to get the Super Bowl. For 3 games, they're in the Super Bowl. These 3 games are not easy games, though. These 3 games are not, the Washington Redskins or, uh, some of the other teams Dallas has played. But Dallas has proven this year that they can play with any team in the league. They beat the Saints, they beat the Seattle Seahawks, they beat Philadelphia and trounced on them. They've beat Indianapolis and, just slaughtered Indianapolis. So Dallas has the capability to beat anybody anywhere, and right now they're firing on all cylinders. I believe the last 4 games, Dallas has scored at least 5 touchdowns, or they've scored 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Talk about firing on all cylinders, firing and getting hot when you want to get hot. That's the Cowboys right now, and I don't know that I remember a time since the 1990s when the Cowboys offense has looked, more red hot on fire than it has those last 4 games. And it is very, very nice to see as a Cowboy fan. It's very refreshing to see after all the years, we're talking almost 20 years or whatever, since we've seen a Dallas offense look this explosive and this balanced and this good. So, and because it's been so long, I think that's one of the reasons I was so fired up when I made that earlier video cursing Jason Garrett and saying Jason Garrett needs to be fired and everything else I said. I do think Jason Garrett has done a good job. I still don't understand for the life of me why he played the starters as much as he did, and I think he could have been regretting it if something could have happened. And the chances of something happening bad to one of your starters when you got a frustrated team that you're beating the socks off of, in a rival like Washington, the chances of something bad happening go up significantly in a game like they had today. There is no way I would have played all the starters nearly as long. In fact, I wouldn't have even started Romo. I wouldn't have even started Dez Bryant, Witten, or Murray. Like I said, I probably would have played Murray to let him see if he could beat Emmitt Smith's record, but then he would have been out too. But Dez Bryant, Romo, Witten, those guys, they wouldn't have even played. If you watched the Cowboy game against the Redskins today, you saw the frustration in the Redskins in the second quarter when that guy about broke Cole Beasley's neck. That was very, very hard to watch the replay of, and I am surprised. As soon as it happened, you saw Terrence Williams get up in that guy's face, because that was a very, very bad tackle. He fake grabbed Cole Beasley's face mask and about, ripped his head around, ripped him to the ground. Obviously, he drew a flag, but who cares if you lose your, an important wide receiver. Cole Beasley is obviously an important part of that Cowboys offense, and he makes a lot of clutch plays. Seems like every time Romo throws him the ball, he's grabbing it, and a lot of times it's on third down, crucial downs that Cole Beasley is coming through, uh, you know, with 2 thumbs up, making a big catch for him. So I am glad the Cowboys won today. I'm glad, nothing happened to any of the starters. I have calmed down quite a bit, but I was very, very furious for almost the last half of that game. I couldn't believe that even Jason Garrett was, whoever was responsible for starting the starters, I mean, he played them up even after I was yelling and screaming in that video. 5 minutes left, he had Romo and Dez Bryant and Murray out there still, and I couldn't believe it. Dallas ended up winning that game 44-17, a big win for the Cowboys. But they've got a really important game coming up next Sunday, and this is going to tell us a lot about the Cowboys. It looks like Dallas is firing at the right time. Romo has been red hot in the month of December when they need him hot the most, but now we're stepping into the playoffs. So, uh, it's huge. I mean, it's huge because you lose, you're out. So the stakes have never been higher for the Cowboys, for this Cowboys team, than they are right now. I mean, have to go back to 2009 before they got in the playoffs. Again, they beat Philadelphia in the first round that time, but then they got slaughtered, I think, by the Vikings or somebody the week after. I don't think the Cowboys are going to get slaughtered here in the playoffs, but they very well could lose, especially if they make, bonehead mistakes and fumble and stuff like that, or Romo goes in and throws interceptions or whatever. So now is going to be going into the playoffs. It's going to be really interesting to see if the Cowboys could continue their red hot streak that they've had for the past 4 weeks, being red hot. Okay, scoring 5 touchdowns each game, putting up just monster tons of points. Can Dallas do that against Detroit? If they can, I think Dallas is going to kick their butt. I think Dallas is going to get big-time revenge on what Detroit did to them last year during the regular season. If they can't, it could be a close game, and Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson and company definitely have the fireworks and the capability to beat the Cowboys and kick them out. So, going to be really interesting. This game against Detroit is not a gimme. Yeah, it's not going to be easy. I don't care what the media says. I don't care what anybody else says. Dallas is going to have to play a good game and going to have to be playing mistake-free football. Special teams, all sides of the ball. Our defense is going to have to play up and, continue to run towards the ball and play with all their hearts. And, otherwise, I think the important thing for the Cowboys is to not give up early, because I can definitely see Detroit scoring on like their first 2 or 3 drives or whatever and getting up maybe 21-7 or whatever. And if Dallas gives up, then, it's going to be a long day. But it's important that when I say give up, I mean our defense. Defense can't give up. They've got to stay strong, stay in there, and give our offense a chance to, play catch up if that's what it comes to. Hopefully we don't have to play catch up. Hopefully we take the lead early and, build the lead and make it an easy day. But it's going to be really interesting to see. The Detroit Lions are for real, both defense and offense especially. Again, last year, I just need to remind you that the Lions put up over 600 yards on the Cowboys. So they've definitely got some explosive offense. And I think this game is probably going to be a shootout. I think we're probably going to have a game somewhere 45-38. I could very easily see this game go, be a shootout. It may change, the lead may change 6-8 times before the game's done. So I think this game's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm glad it's the last game of next weekend. I think there's going to be a lot of people tuning in to see that game, and I think it's probably going to be a game with a lot of fireworks. So I'm not going to predict that game yet. I'm hoping my Cowboys can do well, but I am predicting the game is probably going to be a shootout. It's probably going to be a high-scoring affair. So whatever the Vegas odds are for total points, I think I'd probably be going over. Even if it was like 60 points, I think I'd be betting on the over on that game. I want to go ahead and thank you guys for watching. Be sure you put those comments down below. Who do you think is going to win? What do you think about the Cowboys this year? What do you think their chances of making the Super Bowl? They'd have to go through Detroit. They'd have to go through to Lambeau and beat the Packers. And then they'd probably either have to beat Arizona, Carolina, or Seattle. Probably Seattle or Arizona would be one of the teams they'd play in the championship if they beat Green Bay. But first they have to get by the Lions, then they'd have to get by the Packers, and then it would probably be either Arizona or Seattle in the championship is what it's looking like. Carolina could also be their competitor in the championship, but probably not. I'm gonna say 70% chance it's a 60% chance it's the Seahawks, 30% chance it's the Cardinals, 10% chance it's the Panthers. So more than likely it'd be Seattle. They'd have to go into Seattle again. And we already know the Cowboys could beat Seattle. I mean, they did it earlier this year. Granted, Seattle wasn't playing as well then as they are right now, because Seattle is also red hot right now too. So that'd be an interesting game. But before they get to the Packers, before they get to Aaron Rodgers, before they get to Seattle, they've got the Detroit Lions to take care of at home in Dallas next Sunday. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. This has been Zaxter99. Be sure you leave those comments down below. Be sure you give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you want to see more videos, be sure you subscribe to me. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.